is okay, good to know. The first application is for final plat, location Parkside subdivision lot 14, address to be determined North Laura Street, zone residential R. Applicant Josh and Therese Seal, owner Joshua C. Seal. TJ?
Hey, good evening, Planning Commission. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Yep.
Everybody out there, can you hear him?
Okay. Yep. All right, so what we have here, item number one is, as you mentioned, the North Seal subdivision final plat. The parcel was originally platted as Parkside subdivision. The plat created 23 residential lots. 6 of the lots were created where 6 of the lots that were created had notes as allowing either 2 or 3 single-family equivalents on them. Lot 14, which is what we're talking about this evening, had a note stating that 3 single-family equivalents would be allowed on them. The note meant that up to 3 single-family equivalent dwelling units would be allowed on that parcel. You might all remember that back in April, we had this same application come in front of the Planning Commission simultaneously with a variance for a reduction in the required lot width. So I won't get into all of the nitty-gritty details of it, but we have a refined parcel request this evening. All the background is in the staff report. A couple of things that I wanted to point out. First, the property and hearing have been noticed and posted in the by the town in accordance with the Ridgway Municipal Code, Section 7323D. And there are some changes to the plat, the request that have been highlighted in the staff report. Let's see here. Oops, wrong one. Let's see here. So because this was previously platted as a major subdivision, all the utilities are currently in place. No new utilities or public improvements are required. All 3 lots, lot 14A, B, and C, appear to be able to meet the minimum dimensional standards of the zone district. And of note there that the lot widths were amended so that it can meet, all 3 meet the minimum 50-foot lot width requirement for the code. A couple of other comments from the last time. One, as previously desired, the note 7 was being requested to be amended to allow building permits. That one's the one that requires all construction to be taking place prior to occupancy issued for any one building. Previously, the applicant was requesting to amend that, but has since gone back and said, we'll just keep the original plat note on that. So that is no longer a part of this request. Additionally, through the last discussion with Planning Commission in April, there was some concerns about whether or not the HOA had approved the subdivision. We have received a HOA approval letter dated June 28th, 2021, stating that the HOA approves the subdivision as requested. Lastly, there's a list of public comments that we've received over the last couple of weeks. Just to clarify, some of them came to me. Some of them were not sent to me because of some spelling errors in my email address. I know that it's not the easiest thing to spell. So you'll see there are some additional public comments that were received that are included in the staff report that are not included, or as I guess part of attachment C, or D. Oh, where's that go? The letters of support that are not in the table on page 5 of the staff report. So that's just why you'll see some extras in the packet. So with all of that, upon reviewing the application against the applicable town standards, staff recommends that the town planning commission recommend the town council approve the North Seal subdivision with the following conditions. 1, a reproducible Mylar properly executed by all parties except town officials be submitted to the town within 30 days of approval of the subdivision by the town council. 2, note 9 stating that all 3 lots are to own the sewer line be removed. Number 3, any water and sewer tap fees that have not been paid or waived pursuant to note 6 of the Parkside subdivision plat shall be paid in accordance with section 9-1-9 of the Ridgway Municipal Code prior to issuance of the first building permit for any lot in this subdivision. And 4, amend the second line of the title of the subdivision to read, quote, an amended plat of lot 4, Parkside subdivision, town of Ridgway. So with that, I believe the applicant, Therese and Josh Seal are in the audience, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission might have.
Thank you, TJ. Therese, Josh, would you like to say anything?
Hi. Yeah.
Hi, Commissioners, Marty Whitmore on behalf of the Seals this evening. We've written a new explanation of why they are interested in doing 3 separate lots rather than a triplex. I think the reasons are very straightforward and clear and multiple. First of all, triplexes, since the time of the original plat, have become more expensive to build than 3 single-family dwellings, largely due to building code changes. Number 2, the market really demands single-family dwellings rather than condominium or townhome or triplex units. They'll be attractive. They can be done without the need for an HOA, which again, when you're talking about affordable housing, all of these small costs, some of them large costs, add up. And something that you want to be affordable suddenly is not as affordable as it could be. And so the original note, as you'll see in your packet, the plats are, I believe, at pages 11, 12, and 13. The note really contemplated that the triplex required on lot 14 could be attached or detached. They could be built together or separate. So this is not a change really in the original intent. The intent of the original plat was to allow the future developer the ability to do what made the most sense at the time of construction. And we believe there's support for this, as you've seen. The HOA is very supportive. Other neighbors, other people in the community are supportive of this. And so happy to answer questions. And certainly the Seals are happy to answer specific questions, but we don't want to take more of your time than is necessary unless you do have specific questions or issues to bring up.
Thank you.
My recollection is that we weren't opposed to it at all. It was just the variance that John didn't want to grant a variance, so he wanted him to do it differently. But beyond that, I didn't think we had any problem with it. Did we?
Nope.
No. I think we're pretty good.
Great, then we won't need to take any more of your time. I'm so sorry. You know, the acoustics are less than stellar. Essentially, they're asking to build 3 separate units rather than a triplex because it costs less to build 3 separate units than a triplex due to building code revisions. And because the market really is for single family dwellings more so than for triplex units.
And what is you're against or for?
I'm representing the applicants.
I understand. Okay.
So it's more affordable to do 3 separate dwellings than it is.
It is. largely because of building code changes.
Okay, excuse me, this is a planning commission meeting, and so she is presenting to the planning commission. And we have, this is also a public hearing, so I will open up for public comment, which time we can ask for response from the applicant.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, in terms of public comment, there were 2 additional emails that staff received between the time the packet was published and today. One was from Ms. Priscilla Peters in support of the application. The other one was from Patrick. I apologize, I don't know how to say his last name. He was also in support of that application. So 2 additional to what's in the packet already.
Okay, thank you. Okay, as I said, this is a public hearing, so I will now open it up for public comment. You step forward to the podium, you say your name and address. And you are directing it to Planning Commission. Yes, Jack.
My name is Jack Petroselli at 540 Marion Overlook in Ridgway, Colorado. I'll be brief here. I'm in support of this proposal, and I want to share with the commission the reasons for that is several years ago, I built the Escalante townhouses in Ridgway on Escalante Street, went through this process similar they're going through, and we instead of the subdivision process, because it was so onerous, we went through a condominium subdivision process and sold off the units as condos. And at the time, we thought that was adequate, and planning commission was in favor, and I was developer, I was in favor. But the end result is the mortgage rate for the end user or the housing owner was about 1.5% higher than if it had been single family homes. So I encourage the applicant to apply for single family lots to actually lower the cost for the end buyer. It's something we don't think about here in this room, but in the open marketplace, it's very significant. So I encourage that we approve this.
Thank you, Jack. Anybody else?
Hi, my name is Julie Meir, M-E-H-R-E-R, and I live at 825 Chipeta Drive. I bought half of a duplex there in 2013, and it was the best that I could afford at the time. But the problem is shared walls. So I get to hear my neighbor's toilet flush. I get to hear what happens in my neighbor's bedroom. I get to hear what happens in my neighbor's dining room. The issue is peace and privacy. I'm glad it costs less to build single family units. And if I had the choice, I would much prefer that. Since I purchased my place, I had Josh and Therese Seal do some improvements. Their work is excellent. They are creative and innovative. And I would really encourage you to move forward with this project. We need creative, innovative, small builders in our community as we deal with this issue of affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Anybody else? Okay, close public comment. Anybody have any questions for the applicant or staff?
No, I'm ready to make a motion, but I can't seem to pull up the packet. Struggling. Should I make the motion just as TJ read it, or would you like me to read it for the record?
You can just,
My suggestion would be to say with the conditions
say,
cited by TJ and cited in the staff report.
Okay.
Yes, that should be fine.
Go ahead.
He said that.
Okay. What will be fine?
I think whatever. What you do will be fine.
I would like to make a motion to approve the application for the North Seal subdivision final plat with the following conditions. 1, reproducible Mylar properly executed by all parties except town officials be submitted to the town within 30 days of approval of the subdivision by the town council. 2, note 9, stating that all 3 lots are to own the sewer line to be removed. 3, any water and sewer tap fees which have not been paid or waived pursuant to note 6 of the Parkside subdivision plat shall be paid in accordance with section 919 of the Ridgway Municipal Code prior to issuance of the first building permit for any lot in this subdivision. And 4, amend the second line of the title of the subdivision to read an amended plat of lot 14, Parkside subdivision, town of Ridgway.
Second.
We have a motion. and
Mr.
second.
Chair,
Yes,
Mr. Chair, this is TJ. I just want to confirm that it's, the motion is to recommend approval to the town council.
yes.
Correct.
Yes, I accept that correction. I actually should have asked you guys first, are you okay with all these? Does this work for you? Is this what you wanted?
Yes.
Okay.
Very much.
It's my first motion, sorry, and the sunglasses are because I forgot my prescription glasses, not because I'm super cool.
So noted.
Thank you.
Okay, we have an amended motion. Second. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion?
Good.
Nope.
Okay, all in favor? Or you want to poll? Yeah, go ahead.
There's actually no need for a call to vote since no one's.
No one's on.
Virtually, so.
Okay, all right.
We're good.
So, aye.
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 Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm super psyched you guys are doing this. I think the only concern was the variance issue. So great. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, we're looking forward to it. I'm excited to start it on it.
Okay, item number 2, the application is, item number 2, the application is sketch plan location Lydell Stanton subdivision block 3 lot 10, address to be determined Lydell Drive, zone historic business HB. Applicant Chris Hawkins, owner Revelation Investments Co. LLC. TJ.
All right, guess it's up to me again. So what we have, as you mentioned, is a sketch plan request for Iron Rail Townhomes. It's in lot 10 of Lydell Stanton subdivision, currently vacant property, and it consists of approximately 0.5 acres. As you mentioned, the property is zoned historic business. And the request is to evaluate the concept of a subdivision to subdivide into lot 10 into 5 attached townhome lots or townhome units on 10 parcels for a total of 10 dwelling units. The applicant has submitted a hearing application, and the property and hearing have been noticed and posted by the town in accordance with Ridgway Municipal Code, Section 7323. Again, a full analysis of the application against the master plan goals and policies in the Ridgway Municipal Code are included in the staff report, as well as some conceptual comments and review findings from both the town engineer and town planning department, myself. So I won't regurgitate all of those, but in general, I just want to highlight a few items. First, land use. The master plan identifies a maximum density of 12 to 18 dwelling units per acre. The proposal is for 10 units on half an acre with a total density of 20 acres per unit. Again, the master plan is a guidance document, so there's some flexibility and leeway there, and when it's zoned, the zoning prevails, but at least that gives you a guide for the character and density of particular areas of town. On the dimensional standards, no setback distances.
DJ,
Oh, sure.
just to clarify,
Sure.
it is really 20 units per acre, isn't it?
The proposal is 20 units per acre is the density. That's correct.
Okay, all right.
And to back up, you said normally it's 12 to 18 per acre, so one more than the max for half an acre?
Yes, so that's the master plan proposed density,
Okay,
correct. And that's what I was mentioning, that's a guidance. And so usually when you have the future land use map, right, in the master plan that tells you densities and general characteristics and development patterns, then you apply zoning and the zoning prevails over that. But you kind of want to make all of them in match. And that's kind of the discussion, that at the sketch plan, is this density the appropriate density in this location, given all of the information? Does that make some sense?
it does.
Okay. So then next are the dimensional standards. Again, this is kind of a looking ahead. It's not necessary to show right now, but based on the sketch plan, but none of the setbacks were shown. And depending on how the final parcel lays out, what we identify as front property line, side property lines, things like that, we have some questions about whether or not the setbacks can be met in the final proposal. But again, that's something we can work through the next. I don't want to necessarily get hung up on setbacks at the concept phase here, but I just want to bring them to your attention. Also, the residential design standards. There are some concepts in the design standards associated with the roof and roof pitches and design, as well as making sure that two units or two of the attached townhomes, so 2 units, are not identical, located next to each other. And again, we'll get through that in the preliminary plan if everything is good at this level. And then lastly, the access and utilities. The proposal right now is a hammerhead driveway that it's privately owned and maintained. You can see in the sketch plan that the property line or the driveway essentially goes over property line. So there's just some question about how is that going to meet the standards? How do we make that work through like a common ownership, HOA, things of that nature. Again, nothing that really stands out at this point in the game, but we want to bring to your attention as we start talking about the concept, and while the applicant can hopefully address some of those items. So, wrong document. Sorry, so with all of that, so with that, pursuant to the Ridgway Municipal Code provisions for the sketch plan review, the Planning Commission must either approve, conditionally approve, or disapprove the sketch plan. And based on our review at this point, staff would recommend the Planning Commission approve the sketch plan with all of the comments and discussion identified in the staff report and in this discussion to guide the applicant in submitting their preliminary plat application. So with that, I believe that the applicant is in the audience, Chris Hawkins, and he can present, or I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission might have of us.
Thank you, TJ. Is the representative of the applicant here?
Chris Hawkins
Hi.
should be on the phone.
Hi, this is Chris Hawkins with Alpine Planning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you. Good evening. I'm away on vacation, so I'm sorry I couldn't be there this evening. I'm going to try sharing my screen, but the internet is lagging where I'm at. So if actually someone has to let me, share my screen. So.
Hey, Chris, this is Preston. Half the people are here in the audience and aren't going to be able to see whatever visual you have.
Okay.
So.
All right. Okay. Well, I'll go on without it then.
In the packet.
Yeah, no, I wasn't aware of that. Not had this run into this kind of Zoom hybrid issue yet. So appreciate and understand that, Preston. Thank you for letting me know that. So as far as the site itself, I think everyone's familiar with where it's at. The end of Liddell Drive, just past the cul-de-sac. It's a vacant lot with some cottonwood trees in the center. And then to the south, there's an existing single-family home. The Liddell Drive right-of-way actually continues on past the cul-de-sac. You can see that in the aerial photo that was submitted in the application. And then it just dead ends up against the Dalwhinnie property.
Right
As far
now,
as,
we're looking at a site plan with the drawn out with the different buildings on it, or we were.
okay, all right, great, thank you. Are you sharing that on Zoom?
It's on the screen in the room, so everyone.
Okay,
Now
okay.
we're looking at the overhead photo.
Yeah, so thank you. I appreciate that. This is a little awkward. So the site plan itself, back on that one, it shows where Liddell comes off at the very end, and it's a narrower drive that serves a single family home. One of the things that we have to do in this project is widen that out to meet the town and fire district design standards and widen that gravel road, and also relocate that entry for the single family home further back to the east so that can be differentiated as a private driveway versus a drive to this property or to the single family home. One thing I did want to point out, lot 10 is completely located out of the current map floodplain. I had a nice graphic of that. We'll share with that with the actual preliminary review when it gets submitted. The floodplain basically is a very narrow band along Coronet Creek, and it was actually modified to be really narrow and just fit into the channel back behind this lot as well as the single family home. So as far as the site layout and design, it is proposed for 10 townhouse lots. Townhouse lots are a little unique, I think, for Ridgway, but it's, I think, the closest comparison some of you might have seen is an actual condo lot where it's split. Solar Ranches has a lot of those where you have a duplex and then you put a center lot line down the middle. In that case, it's actually a condo unit line. And just like in Solar Ranches, we're proposing that there actually are no setbacks applied to those interior lot lines that evolve out. So if you're looking at that site plan right now on the screen, for example, between lots 1 and 2, there's a proposed lot line. That is an internal lot line that's created through the townhouse plat along with a front line. So typically in most jurisdictions, you have a series of lot lines that are created through condo maps or townhouse plats, and the only setbacks that are applied are to the original parent parcel property lines on the exterior of the property. We'll work through that setback issue with TJ, certainly show the side setbacks as required by zoning and the front setback along what's Liddell right away and the rear setback along the rear of the property. But hopefully, there's a good solution there. As far as the design itself, it's in a very preliminary stage. We have peer design. Casey Culbertson's on the phone in case you have any design questions regarding the design. We understand we do need to modify this some to meet some of the design standards and look forward to moving on to the next step for that. As far as specific comments on the staff memo, I think it's really important that the 2020 comprehensive zoning regulation amendments eliminated any requirement to provide commercial on this property. That was in the HB zone district. That was a specific change. Even though the master plan, suggests there be commercial, the town removed that as a specific zoning requirement. We're seeking a by right project. And that basically means it's a use by right. We're not seeking any variations. We just simply want to develop for the zoning regulations that are in place to realize the use of the property. Already talked about Liddell Drive being widened out, and relocating the entry. As far as the future floodplain maps, if the town has any copies or drafts that yet, would appreciate them sharing that with us. I could not find any online, and I'll talk to TJ after about where that's at. But today, right now, it is not in the floodplain, and we don't anticipate that changing, but certainly want to be a part of that process and understand where the draft maps might be at. As far as the comment to loop the water line, the town approved the Liddell Stanton subdivision with a dead end water line. So all lots along Liddell have this situation with most of them already being developed, or lots of them. So to come in at this late stage of the game and say that this owner is responsible for redesigning the water system for the whole subdivision, and I'm not sure we're reading more into that or not, but we think that's more of a universal problem that's bigger than just this one developer. I'm not sure if Alpine Bank was asked to do that, or if even the single family home was asked to do that. So as far as the pedestrian facilities, there's no sidewalks at all right now on Liddell Drive. Alpine Bank was not required to provide a sidewalk. Not really sure where a sidewalk would go on this property to a single family home, or even going back to the north. But Alpine Bank, if you look at the design of that, it'd be fairly problematic to get a sidewalk in there should the town move in that direction. So not sure what pedestrian facilities staff is looking at. So as far as the other issues in this, the use by right project anywhere in the town, there was a comment about, well, us explaining why we're not bringing water to the table. And I work in a lot of jurisdictions, and I've not seen one instance where if you have a use by right where a jurisdiction is saying you need to bring water to the table, when you plat a subdivision as a jurisdiction, at that time, you're committing to providing infrastructure and water, sewer, et cetera. Those assertions, those requirements are met at the time of subdivision. So we're a little confused on that and would like some clarity as to why that's being asked now. Did Alpine Bank have to bring that to the table, or the single family home? But hopefully that's an easy one and we can move past that. I already talked about the side setbacks, and we really would respectfully recommend the town consider a code interpretation that side and front setbacks for condo and townhouse units only apply to the parent parcel and not condo unit lines. That's really typical in all jurisdictions I've worked over the last 20 plus years. And with that, you may have some questions. Our team is here to answer any you might have, and thank you for your time and look forward to hearing your comments.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open up for public comment. Anybody who wants to step forward and make comments, identify yourself and state your address. Anybody?
Hi, I'm Gary Dick. I'm the owner of the single family home with my wife at the end of Liddell Drive. And aside from being slightly stunned at the density of the proposed project. Can you speak up, please? Sorry. I'm a little stunned at the density of the project, but beyond that, there are a couple of points that I wanted to be at least included in as this goes forward. I don't want it to happen in a vacuum when we're at the end of the street, especially relating to the access to the project. I heard Chris saying online here that there's talk of widening Liddell and having separate driveways, but I haven't seen anything to do with that or been involved in it so far. And obviously, we already had to move our driveway for the previous owner of this lot at some expense. And if something's going to change, then we want to be part of that conversation. The floodplain is a big concern for me. When I was doing due diligence for building our single family home, I discovered that Cottonwood Creek really only is an estimated floodplain. And so we had to go through a letter of map amendment process with FEMA in order to amend the floodplain for Cottonwood Creek next to our lot. At the time, Jen Coates was the town manager, and I was talking to her all the time. The town was concurrently getting ready to do a study of the entire length of Cottonwood Creek through the town to establish what the floodplain was for the benefit of all the owners up and down. We wound up doing our own because we couldn't wait for the town because of timing. And as far as I've heard, and I may be wrong, this process started in 2014. I turned over all of our information to the town so that we'd all be singing off the same song sheet with the assumptions for the floodplain. But as far as I know, it's not included. This is a long preamble to say that when Chris said they're not in the floodplain, no, they're not in the floodplain. It's a 1984 FEMA map that hasn't been updated, that we're all running off, and it's an estimated map of that. And at some point in the past, the creek used to run from down the side of Market Street through town, and then it went through this very lot and across to the road bridge at 62. If you look at a Google map, you'll see it's still drawn that way. So 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago now, I forget which, we had a big storm. Cottonwood Creek was jammed full. It was very scary at our house. I mean, we looked out the window, it was bang full. There was a 25-foot or so culvert that used to be under the road bridge, that actually made round the right angle bend where some previous person has diverted the creek along the side of our lot. And it goes down to the river, and that 25-foot culvert managed to make it all the way down to the river. So there's a significant risk of flooding in my mind. So I'd like to know what happened to the town plan, you know, the revision to the floodplain estimate. Is during that flood or near flood, some water did actually overbank at the corner where it makes the man-made turn and goes past our lot and overbanked onto this lot. And so it seems to me that when you look at this plan, there needs to be some provision or thought about flood water potentially getting through this development. Then also I'm concerned because they mentioned they're going to put the setbacks on here. It's the first time I've seen the sketch plan. And actually I'm pleased to see that the two buildings on the south side are a further setback from our house, but I don't know what that distance is. But I'm concerned about snow shedding and all of that stuff. And if there was a flood at Cottonwood Creek, that these buildings don't wind up funneling the water onto our lot. Other concern I have is they obviously have to provide parking for all of the residents off street. I think it's like one per townhouse, and looks like they've got the garages on the bottom level, which is great. Everybody's going to be parking under the townhouses, but is there any provision or space for visitors to park? Where are they going to go? And further to parking, I don't know if this is going to be a condo association or an HOA, Bruce? Probably an HOA. So is the HOA going to restrict like short-term rentals? Because if you allow short-term rentals, then you're going to put
Comments
Sorry.
come to us.
Sorry.
And
Sorry.
we can make the comments to the applicant.
Okay.
We'll do this offline.
I think that's pretty much covers my concerns for now. I just want to be somewhat involved in the discussion. Seems like there's already been some stuff going on with town management, but in as much as it's directly going to affect how we get in and out of our house, we'd like to be included.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
My name is Dee Dee Decker. I own the lots that Gary and Allison looked out at on the same level, most of the way around the cul-de-sac. And I own up to the right-of-way that the town has that could one day go all the way through, I think, to the county road. Anyway, I didn't know anything about this until a couple of days ago. Gary just said that this meeting was happening tonight, and I'm happy to see the plan. I've looked at the lots yesterday where this would be. I'm horrified to see that at least a dozen cottonwood trees would have to go for this project. But I'm not against it yet. At the same time, I'm horrified by the thought of it, quite honestly, right there by the river. And that's just a personal, emotional feeling. I've been in Ridgway for 48 years and I've owned this property for a long time. I have never developed it and I would like Gary said, I would like to be also included in what the town does along the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Jack.
Jack Petroselli, 540 Marion Overlook. I'm not here to speak for or against the project. I built the cul-de-sac. I bought the Liddell Stanton subdivision from Corey Liddell and built the cul-de-sac that's out there. And through that process of completing that subdivision 20 years ago or so, I was required to put a plat note on that final plat that required no parking on that cul-de-sac. And through the years, we're all aware that the Adobe was using it all the time. And since Gary has moved in, we've talked about it, Dee and I've talked about it, but nobody's really brought it up to the town. But if you think about the parking on this site, think about if the Adobe reopens and then the other properties fill in, parking is going to be an issue there. And I think that plat note exists. There's no parking on that cul-de-sac. So if that cul-de-sac gets rebuilt or redesigned or reshaped, that plat note needs to be addressed.
Thank you. Thank you, Jack. Anybody else?
Yes. Hi, I'm Bruce. I own the lot on the other side. I sold Craig that lot. He's gonna build a house. Yeah, I don't have to say anymore. A house is turned into a village. And it's such a little street for such a short distance along the river. I guess we're gonna lose every charming spot we have in Ridgway because we came here to live, not to make money. That's the difference. 32 years we ran the Adobe. And I know it looked like we were making money, but we weren't, but we loved being there. And I'm like, Dee Dee and Gary, I want to know what's going on. When I heard about this, I said, oh God, you're kidding. But I said that about the corner next to Kate's. 35 units there, and I'm sorry, I haven't participated because I'm not good on Skype or whatever you call it. To me, if I can't even use my iPhone. But anyway, for what it's worth, you have to get it out of the system because you just feel like here we go again. They love the way it is, but they don't want to leave it like it is. It has to be completely different, bigger, better, stronger, lots of people, lots of traffic. Good. I hope everybody enjoys all the changes.
Thank you.
I just have something small to say. I am absolutely, my name is Lori Kriesel. I live at 502 Sabeta Drive in Ridgway, of course. I'm absolutely shocked to see this. How many units on, what is the acreage? Half an acre. It's like, as Joyce was saying, we live here because of the beauty. I mean, cramming a bunch of units in a small space like that by the river. I mean, no. How tall are these units going to be? They've got a garage, they've got first story and then a second story. We're talking 3 floors. It's just, it's like so many people are so upset at what's going on in Ridgway. I'm one of them, so I'm just here to express that. It's like I live here, I came here because it was beautiful, it's small, and people thought about what they were doing. And this is just, to me, absolutely no. And floodplain, I'd love to see the results of that too, because, I know we're having a water shortage as well here, and we're talking 1 unit versus 8 units. It's a lot. We have to forward think. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
My name is Priscilla Peters, and I echo the 2 ladies over here. We've been here a long time, 35 years, and building right on a in a floodplain. I remember when Moffett flooded down into the adobe and this business next to the adobe. They wiped out so much of where the co-housing development is going. I just think being close to the river is our treasure. It's a gold that we can't replace if it's gone. And I'm totally against this. The density is insane. The size. Thank you.
Thank you, Priscilla. Yes.
My name is Bruce McIntyre. I live at 414 Amy Way in Ridgway. I moved to South. Speak up.
I think it works better if you stand off to your side so everybody can hear.
Again, oh, yeah, there's a light. I think I'll do it here. Bruce McIntyre, live in Ridgway. I moved to Telluride in 1974. So I've been coming through Ridgway since then, like everybody who lives up in the valley. And I own commercial property here, and I'm representing the owner of this piece of property. I actually have, can I ask you guys questions? And here's my question. One of the caveats, one of the requirements of zoning is that no two buildings adjacent to each other can have the same facade. My question is, these are two townhouses, can they share a facade? These have a different facade, or is it this building can't look like that building? We just want to make sure that that we're going down the direction you're pointing us. Is there any guidance on that?
TJ, you want to speak to that?
Sure. So I just want to make sure. I think you were saying the this and that. So
Yeah.
I'll just try to refer to a site plan. So I'm looking at the site plan sheet A0-10. And it shows like.
Excuse me, TJ. He's
Yep.
referring to if you got two tiny townhouse units side by side attached. Does the
correct.
code require that they have those two, the attached units have different elevations?
No. Well, I mean, they need to be, design integrity themselves, but they have to be different than the two attached units next to them.
That's
okay.
So to restate what I think I heard, these guys can have similar facades, but these facades can't be those facades. The 6 and 7 or 5 and 6 have to be different than 3 and 4.
So it's the building, not the units, is what I'm hearing.
Yep.
The exterior and the look of the.
That is correct. It's the building, not the units.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Hey, Doug, this is Chris Hawkins. Can I just have a minute to rebut a little bit?
Let's get through the public comment period first.
Oh,
Chris.
okay, sorry. I thought that was done. Sorry. My apologies.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, we'll close public comment. Now, Chris, we're going to have some discussion. If we want to ask you a question, we will ask you a question, okay?
Okay.
All right. So, anybody have any thoughts?
Well, I think, Chris, you've probably heard that a substantial number of people here are not in favor of the density that you're suggesting. So we'll start with that.
Sure. I mean, in the end, it's in the historic business zone district. It's the same zone district as a space to create project, and there's no density cap in that zone district. It doesn't say you're limited to 10 units per acre or 5. It's also not located in the Uncompahgre River Overlay District. So the zoning is where the use by right comes into play, and it allows by right townhouse units. I respect and understand people don't like that, but if they don't like that, they don't like the current zoning. And there's a lot of zoning in the town that hasn't been built. Next to Joyce's old building, that site right by the post office, that's historic business. There'll be a big building or 2 or 3 going in there someday. And historically, Ridgway has had really big buildings, even bigger than anything that's been built, like the Hotel Mentone. So there's a lot of development out there. The master plan recognized that. But as far as, any, saying that we can't build by right on there, I think those are some pretty big, asks. So I'm kind of curious where the commission is on that, and thank you for asking.
I was interested in the parking issue. It shows that you have under the unit parking for residents. Is there a visitor parking area?
We have not contemplated that yet. It's not required by the code. The code only requires 1 space per unit, and we're providing 2. I think if there's a concern on that, we can regroup with the team and come back on how we might provide some limited guest parking, either on-site or off-site, in cooperation with the town.
Is this a mixed, isn't this proposed just mixed use?
No, it's just for townhouse units, so a strict residential project.
Well, one more point. Your proposal asks for a 20 dwelling unit density where we have our guidance is 12 to 18. So that may be a point that we need to discuss at some point.
Especially given the public comment.
Correct.
Yeah, and I think your town attorney should be present at the meeting for that and explain what use by right is.
Chris, we haven't gotten the discussion turned it into a park yet.
Yeah,
So you
really.
wanna-
The water's gonna come from.
The water is coming from the municipal supply.
So Chris, how big are the units?
I'm going to defer that question to Casey Culbertson, the project architect. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. The units are, each one of them, I believe they are 2,200 square feet total, dispersed over 3 floors, including the garage.
What's the footprint? 700 something?
Sure. So each unit is, it's 40 feet in depth, and I'm checking the width here. The width, each unit is 19 foot wide by 40 foot deep.
And is there any dwelling space on the ground floor?
There is. So there's a single bedroom and bathroom behind the garage. At least as conceptually laid out.
I don't know if this is an appropriate question, but to TJ, what is, I guess, the allowable usage we've been told is 12 to 18 units per acre? I mean, beyond that, excuse me?
This is happening.
Right. So it would be half that, but that's units. So is there a square footage? It sounds like Chris said there isn't limit.
That's correct. That is correct. And in situations like this, you refer to both, a lot of planning commission standards or standards that the planning commission needs to find is that it's in compliance with the comprehensive plan. And so it's kind of a balancing act. The future land use map and the comp plan, as Chris mentioned, is guidance. And as we've all mentioned, it's 12 to 18. This does go above that, but then it's balancing that allowance versus zoning allowance. And I just want to that point too, Chris keeps mentioning this use by right. That is correct. Townhomes are, but we're here tonight because we have to go through an approval process, through a subdivision process. So the standards will have to be met for in order to approve the sketch plan and subsequent subdivision processes. The planning commission needs to find that it meets those standards, and one of those is that it's in compliance with the guidance of the comprehensive plan. And so it's a balancing act there.
I'm glad you recognize that.
So I'm wondering where the balance is, because you guys are on the phone. We've got quite a few long-term residents here telling us that they don't like this project. And I'm curious what our ability is to direct any changes.
I apologize. Was that direct? Was that comment question or question directed at me? This is TJ.
It was, yes.
Okay.
Like where's the balance?
Yeah. Sure. And the balance is between, and again, it's a pretty, well, let me try to find that standard. So, I'm just trying to find it, but the balance, yeah, it's the balance is either, you know, you're taking into account all of the conversation and the public comment, the allowance by the requirements of the zoning or the allowances through the zoning and the subdivision the subdivision regulations, but also the comprehensive plan. And so that is that's the position that you guys are in. Unfortunately, there's not much else I could do at this point, right? I think you can, if you're feeling that that the density is not appropriate in this location, then you can essentially make that motion, and we can go back to the drawing board and with the applicant and see if there's something else there. There's also, you know, other layout issues that were brought up, parking, other design and layout items that may tweak the layout. And that's the point of this dialogue right now. I think, you know, we're trying to understand the planning commission's guidance to go back so that we as staff have some understanding of where you guys are, and we can help and facilitate with the applicant to get through some of these issues that are brought up this evening. So I don't think it's not a hard yes or a hard no this evening. You know, we're taking copious notes over here, and I, you know, we can go back and start working with the applicant on how to address these in different ways. It's a very long-winded way of saying it's a hard balancing act.
So if 18 units are allowed per acre as the maximum, are they technically asking for one extra one, or is that too allowable?
You know, I'd need to dive into that deeper, and I guess if I would reframe the question or the question and say, is this density appropriate here? Because again, the comp plan is taking a wide swath at various areas, and what we're doing this evening is taking both the zoning standards and the comp plan standards and applying it to a particular parcel. And so I think it's well within your purview to say potentially that this density, this high of a density in this location doesn't seem appropriate. And there's some support in the comprehensive plan to do that.
So if I can just piggyback on that, TJ. So yeah, the master plan is a guiding document. It's not by any means the law of the land. But you got to weigh that heavily. So to piggyback on what he's saying, I mean, it's an interesting spot y'all are in for this. I mean, it's a balancing act between, you got to weigh heavily the comments that you've received tonight against the criteria in the code, subdivision procedure that is afforded for the applicant, you all to consider. We had informal at an administrative level, but sketch plan, and then subsequent to that, preliminary plat and final plat after that. So I'm kind of going back to what your question was before, but it's a balancing act for you all to consider what's appropriate and what you all don't really deem appropriate. You can articulate that, and we can take that as staff and work with the applicant to find what I would call a happy medium.
Yeah, thank you, Chris.
Thanks.
TJ, got a question for you. Since this appears that it is, without acknowledging it, they're putting 10 units on here and not disclosing that in order to do that, they need a variance, and they haven't applied for a variance. And the criteria on a variance is there's some unusual hardship. The unusual hardship seems to be trying to put 10 units on this lot.
Do they need a variance?
Well, and I just want to be careful through here that for the use itself and the density, to put 10 units on this parcel in this zone district, no variance is necessary. As Chris mentioned, there's some, there's a standard, or he's asking us staff to interpret setbacks one way. So there might be some need for variances and setbacks, and then also some other standards we just don't know yet. But I want to be absolutely clear that to put this density in there does not require a variance because it meets the zoning standards.
However, our concern with parking would seem to indicate that one of our problems with the sketch plan as drawn is that there is no guest parking. And as we also heard earlier, that there's a plat note that prevents parking on Lydell Drive. So we do need some flexibility, I would say, on the applicant's part to lessen density to allow for that parking issue. I think Mr. McIntyre.
That's a backwards situation. If you can come up with a question that he wants to answer, go ahead. TJ, I don't like your answer on no variance because Chris has got 20 years, I got 40 years. And you got multiple buildings, there's an assumed property line, and I've always taken that that's where your setbacks from. It's a life safety issue. So.
Yeah, well, I want to be absolutely clear, and you asked a very specific question about the number of units. There are, and then we jumped over to parking, and one thing that I want to mention is that we can't look at any one of these standards individually, and that's kind of what we do need to look at all of them, because again, looking at parking standards, looking at the access and utility standards, looking at parking, mentioned that, looking at setbacks, and again, looking at what a townhome subdivision is, will all have to be looked together. So there might be some variance, but not to put the number of dwelling units based on the zoning on this parcel. That was a very specific answer to a specific question.
Yes, very nuanced. Thank you.
So I would say that one of the issues I heard tonight was people are concerned about the floodplain and that the study that's being cited is outdated. So that should be noted. And there seems to be a serious concern about height and density in relation to the location of this project near the river. So those are two very clear things I heard from the public tonight that I would like to convey that concern.
Just to clarify a question that came up on the floodplain. We've heard comments that there has been work done and the town was moving forward. Now, to my knowledge, the town is not working on that.
That's correct. The town is not currently working on that.
So the 84 map is still the problem.
Right, the FEMA flood map that's currently in place is the correct version. What I can tell you is FEMA and one of their specific divisions is working on updating that map. They've released some preliminary data, but it won't become firm and adopted until 2023, I believe. So, but yes, I think it was back in 2014, as Gary was saying, 2015, something to that effect. The town was working on a kind of a more comprehensive LOMR process. It was never finalized. It was a lot of work. My understanding is that it was never actually finalized. And so at this point, the town does not have on its work plan, either in the strategic plan or just in the immediate list to pick up that effort kind of at the beginning and see it all the way through. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
I have a question. The project.
Joyce, sorry. I'll go ahead and open up the public comment. Go ahead, Joyce.
Even though I don't like it, if it started and stopped, what would be the beginning date and the end date? Because a project like this could take a long time. You know, you got noise, you got tearing up, you got trucks, you got, I mean, it's a big project. It's a big project. I mean, and I'm gonna add something, I'm gonna be joyful. I don't know which unit the owner's gonna be. How would you know, it's so dense, it's so crowded. And why, you know, I have friends over in Carbondale area. And they actually bought one of these in one of the areas where everybody was right next to each other. So my good friend was over there all the time. It was a nightmare having people, their cars were backing out and kids were in the yard. And I mean, everything was touching each other. That's a small lot. I own that lot. I can walk across it in a couple of minutes. That's a lot to put on that one. I mean, I know I don't care how I sound, you guys. It's just,
Maybe we can put a designation, no children and no visitors.
right, because how many bedrooms are in that one? Could you tell me how many bedrooms are in each unit? They said one behind the garage.
There's three. It's listed as each one is
Okay,
three.
you got 3 bedrooms, 2 cars, 3 person. 3 bedrooms? You're not gonna have any visitors? I mean,
Thank you, Joyce.
There's 60 people living in there.
oh my God.
To say something.
Bruce.
Did you want to say something?
I
You
got
had your
public
hand up.
comment.
I think what I wanted to do was clarify the plat note that.
Yes, about
The plat
parking.
note talks about the cul-de-sac.
Yes.
We're just beyond the cul-de-sac. We touched the cul-de-sac. But we're beyond it on Liddell. It wasn't in reference to you can't park on Liddell. It was you can't park on the cul-de-sac. And then that's
Point well.
when we come back, we may, have to address that issue.
Yeah. Thank you.
And what about access or fire access, emergency? Well, that was one of the concerns, was access for all the people in the cul-de-sac.
Well, based on what I believe I know, is that cul-de-sac within the property would have to be capable of turning around a fire truck, and then you can run a hose literally, because as Joyce says, the lot's very small, you can run a hose out the entire thing.
The fire, this is designed around that darker center.
Yeah.
fire truck is allowed to pull up there and back out
Okay,
because of the length.
because it's so short, okay. Yes,
I'm Allison White. I live at 301 Liddell, Gary, and that's our house. That's just beyond that. And that circle, as it is now, there's no parking on it, overnight parking or camping is what it says. So that was done by the town because it was such a problem with RVs coming down there, and just parking and setting up their tents and yeah. Plus, the circle also has that garden in it, which I maintain. So are the new guys going to maintain it and give it water? Because that's a big issue. I'm going out there with 5-gallon buckets to water it. I'm 71 years old. It's not going to be long before it's going to be like, this is just too much for me. And we can't take a hose from our house because it's too long, but from their property, it makes sense. So just putting that out there.
Good thing to do.
thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have one other question.
Okay, Gary.
It looks like the only access to the units is up the center piece, except for these two. Just wondering if these could be fed. This might be problematic up here and coming in, push these units down here and do it the other way so that you don't have to rush doors as the front element of the lot. Or whether these could be turned. I don't understand why these are on the front when the code says don't do that.
Yes,
This is a sketch plan, right?
yes.
So.
You state your name and address.
Isaac, 283 North Florida. So it sounds like the major issue here is infrastructure as far as parking and layout of the details of how things are going to work. I think parking is a major issue, but is the sketch plan to approve the density of the project moving forward to give developers notes to make if the project is approved, or are we here to treat it like a preliminary plat, whereas the sketch plan's already been pushed through without just saying we have major issues with the infrastructure, we have major parking issues to consider, but let's move forward with the sketch plan or not. Because the sketch plan is showing us 10 units in this layout on this lot. Are we okay with 10 units on this lot? We know this infrastructure is probably not going to work. We know that it needs more parking, but we're not going to get into that until way deep into the preliminary plat. Am I right?
Yep.
That's all.
Thank you.
So should we close public comment again?
Okay, I'll close public comment again. Sorry, Karen.
And
Yeah,
personally, I would be much more supportive of this with less density. So there you go.
Yeah, my 2 cents is the density seems high. I think we need to look at that. Floodplain, we need to look at the ongoing Liddell and exactly what would happen there. And then some of the other issues that were brought up as well, the lack of sidewalks and some of those other concerns, and the additional parking.
I think there would be room for those issues to be dealt with by staff if there were less, if there were 8 instead of 10, for instance. There would be room to do a lot more with that. My 2 cents.
I've got a question for staff or Preston. We have subdivisions that do not have sidewalks. But I understand there is a commitment to, at some point, an improvement district it identifies that there will be an improvement district at some point in the future. And at that point, then all the property owners will be participating in that. Is that something that's done?
That's not, well, yeah, good point. It's not being undertaken currently. That's my understanding as well. That's certainly the aim. The town has standard specs for curb, gutter, and sidewalk. We really need Joanne Fagan in the room to kind of, provide us with kind of that institutional background information about why some subdivisions were required to build sidewalks and why there's not some others. So I don't know that I'm answering your question like exactly. I'm kind of dancing around it, but I think we need to talk with Joanne and get TJ's 2 cents too on why things have transpired the way they have. But we do have certain plans in place for specs and standards, and one of them, very comprehensive document that dictates curb, gutter, and sidewalk. So that's all I can really say.
Okay, thank you.
My 2 cents is along with everybody else's, the density and the safety of the people, the floodplain, if there was flooding and no parking and no sidewalks and the connection to town for those people. So I would like to see that we could approve it in the future if these things have been worked out.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, so there may be some further conversation needed, so I don't want to jump the gun, but y'all have some options here, and TJ did a great job kind of outlining it in the memo. Approval with the considerations of the staff report plus some additional input from you all based on what we've heard in the last few minutes. Disapproval is another option. Continuance is another option. There's nothing to preclude you all from continuing if you all aren't comfortable for whatever reason moving forward with the application as it's been presented tonight. So TJ, correct me if you feel differently, but I'm just trying to make sure everyone's clear about what some of the options are.
Yeah, I think that's correct, Preston.
I am concerned that the architecture we're looking at is sketch plan level. And we've got a site plan here with utilities identified on it and located and property line shown. And that's well beyond sketch plan. And since I am a strong concern for the density, we have not resolved the floodplain. I'm not in favor of moving this forward to council.
So disapproval? Disapproval or continuance?
Well, again, this is sketch plan, so this would, I don't believe it would go to town council next. I believe the next step would be for us to hone in on and work with the applicant on, the applicant on next steps and getting ready for preliminary plat approval whenever that comes to fruition, but that would come back to planning commission. Isn't that right, TJ?
Yes, I believe that as you break it up, I just want to make sure that I was hearing that correctly, that the planning commission makes the decision on this. It doesn't go to town council. And then the next step would be either revising the sketch plan, having a further discussion, or submittal of a preliminary plat with discussion through town staff on some of the discussions we had this evening.
So if we decided to look at a continuance, we could say that we would like the issues that we've addressed to be addressed in the continuance, and then they could come back and we could see where we were with the new revised sketch plan. Is that correct? Is that how that would work?
think the applicant has to request. continuance.
Technically.
We can request.
I don't know that that's true exactly, but I can double check on that. I think it's totally fair and on the table for a body such as the planning commission to continue. But I can check on that.
TJ, you got anything to say on that issue?
I'm a little bit torn and kind of there with Preston. I probably have to, I know this probably doesn't sound so right, but potentially if you're looking at tabling, I might suggest that it would be better off making a recommendation to deny and citing the specific standards that are not met or that you feel are not met, and then the applicant can address those and resubmit the sketch plan. Or a continuance, I think could work too, to a date specific. But we probably want to make sure that we're clear with the applicant on what the expectations are.
So are we looking for a motion then?
Yes.
Okay, so I move to disapprove due to the issues that the commission has documented here, such as parking concerns with floodplain, continuance of the Dell, sidewalks and density. And that the applicant address those issues before coming back.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Preston, you ready for item number 3?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Item number 3, discussion regarding the scheduling of a joint work session with town council on August 11th to review and discuss the potential workforce housing project.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'd like to invite the planning commission to join town council on August 11th. That's the next regularly scheduled meeting of the town council, Wednesday, to discuss the potential for a workforce housing project spearheaded by the Telluride Foundation, Paul Major and David Bruce. A lot of details to be worked out. I'd love for them to be able to present their concepts and their ideas. But the idea at this point is to have a joint work session from the planning commission and the town council, have an open, transparent conversation about what their vision is and see how we might be able to move that forward. There's a lot of variables here, and they're seeking some flexibility from the town in ways potentially that we've never actually seen or been asked before in the town. So anyway, it'll be excited to have the conversation. I think it'll be fruitful, thoughtful, but that's really it. There were no materials for the packet. Just wanted to invite you all. Understand it's still summer and everyone's busy working, going on vacation. But if there's any way you all can make that August 11th council meeting work, I know the town council would appreciate that, and staff will as well.
How would that work? Does the town council like do their regular business first, or is it different than a regular meeting?
That's a great question. It's not so, there's no right way to do it.
You
But
just show up at 5:30 and hang out?
right, and we would put this item, I can commit to putting it towards the beginning of the agenda, maybe not the very first item, but I think the way it'll work, and I'm just thinking out loud now, I've seen it done in other communities, and I think it was done when I first started here. We'll just get everyone in a big circle or in a big long line so that both bodies can kind of hear what the folks from the Telluride Foundation have to say. So again, there's no right way to do it, but
So there wouldn't be materials necessarily, but we would listen to their presentation and maybe raise concerns.
we'll definitely have some materials prepared and
Okay.
sent out, you know, just at least for the purpose of background information, and there'll be some full-blown PowerPoint that they want to present. It won't be too much different than what some of you, maybe all of you saw back in, I think, January or February, when they were in conversations on the ball field. So I think that's all I'll say for now, but it's exciting and looking forward to that conversation. August 11th, meeting starts at 5:30 p.m. And hopefully it's not too short notice. And I know we're just off a special meeting, and appreciate all you guys do. That's the request.
I can do that.
Yeah.
I can do
For a
that.
change.
I'm there.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
okay.
Does that work for you?
Great,
Yes.
to be on both sides of the table.
Same way, John.
You and John, yeah, okay. We get to choose who gets you, who gets John.
We'll sit it together.
Yeah.
I will sit it.
All right. Okay.
So that's it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Can I have a motion on approval of the minutes?
Approval, so moved.
Of both or one?
He can't, he
2
can't.
days on the screen.
Oh, shoot.
You weren't there, so
I
you
wasn't,
can't do it.
I wasn't.
I move that we approve June 29th as well as July 13th, 2021 minutes for the regular and special meetings.
Actually,
Separate.
we can
Separate.
separate them.
We separate.
All right, you can do the one you were here for.
All right. I move we approve the minutes for the June 29th meeting.
I'll second that.
Got a motion, got a second, all in favor?
Aye. I'll move to approve the special meeting minutes of July 13th.
I'll second that.
I'll abstain.
All right, and then we all vote yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
What is the, how many people, what's the minimum?
It's four.
Four.
We got it. We got it. Got it. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Adjourned. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. TJ,
I
thank
was just
you.
curious. I didn't want.
Yeah, TJ.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Okay.